What's up, PlayStation Universe, and welcome to episode 9 of PlayStation Fix. My name is Will Robinson, and joining me today are two of our senior editors. We've got Kyle Prahl.
Hashtag Advent Children. FTW.
And Ernest Lin.
Level up with Linies.
Ernest wants a Leinenkugel sponsorship, if you couldn't tell.
Yep.
Because
I wonder. I'm actually curious. How far known do you think the Liney's name is? Like like when you abbreviate it to Liney's, like does that reach much farther than like Illinois? You think? I have a hard time thinking it'd be more.
know.
I didn't know, where is it brewed?
Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin.
Oh, really? All right. Well, yeah. Let us know in the comments if you've ever heard of Leinenkugel.
I mean, we saw some Linies at the Target in San Francisco.
Oh, you're right.
So
That's-
it's
sure.
there. I don't think it's like as well known as
I'd be more
We'll
interested.
just look at it.
UK people who listen to this podcast, let us know, because that's where I'm more interested.
Has it made it overseas?
Has it made it overseas?
Leinenkugel's family in your London homes, quietly waiting to take over the streets.
Well, you might have seen by the title of this that we're not going to be talking only about beer. Maybe someday we'll have a full beer podcast related to PlayStation somehow.
It wouldn't be bad as like a bonus episode.
Sure,
That'd be
yeah, I'm
good.
sure we can work it in. But our topic today is a game that we have not talked about yet, and it's a pretty big deal, I think some would say, and it'll definitely be invading some homes, like the Leinenkugel's brand, is Uncharted 4, and that will be coming out in March of next year. And we got to
Really
see some...
soon.
Yeah, it is surprisingly soon. And we got to see some pretty awesome... Or it was a pretty awesome surprise at PSX when it got revealed. A new trailer that showed up there, and we got to see our first kind of real look at a heart-to-heart conversation between Nate and his brother Sam. And we also got to see a new feature, which was dialogue options.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Mm-hmm. So both of you guys, as we established in our last podcast, or last episode of the podcast, which you guys should all check out if you're listening to this one right now. And you can help us join in berating Ernest Lin.
Yeah, you can weigh in on the Advent Children debate.
Right.
Yep. It's good.
It's good.
But you guys were at PSX and you got to see, we're in the room when that all happened. So my impression from watching it was that it was a pretty big deal from the audience reception.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what kind of made the opening 20 minutes of the show really cool, is that you had the big epic opening moment of Uncharted 4, which segued right into Final Fantasy 7. So right after that, you're like, oh my god, we're in for 2 hours of this PlayStation roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
The roller coaster came to a lull shortly after Final Fantasy.
Yeah. Thanks VR.
The roller coaster is pretty much just the first kind of tip over the...
Yep, and
Top
then
of
they
the-
just dropped you off the ledge, yeah.
Yep,
But no, I mean, when the lights went down and the Naughty Dog logo came up, well, I think it was Sony Computer Entertainment America Presents or something like that, and then the Naughty Dog logo comes up. I felt I've been in the room a couple times now where that Naughty Dog logo kind of either opens or closes the show, and it's always it's the same cadence every time, where quiet and then when the black and red kind of come up, and you know what you're in for. So yeah, I think it was funny how there was that energy, but then people almost immediately fell silent as we saw Drake stamping the papers in the opening of that trailer, because it was just such a kind of a weird opening, or sort of a dissonant opening, not what you expect from Uncharted. You're like, okay, wait, what's going to happen here? What's actually going on?
Uncharted 4 Office Drake.
Yeah, so
Sitting
there
there
was
doing paperwork.
a thief's day job.
Mm-hmm.
So there were, you still had your cheers throughout the trailer. There were some chuckles when he muttered asshole under his breath. The dialogue choices, that was a funny one too, because I think I noticed that right away, being on the left of frame, kind of bottom left of that image, and like a half second later or 1 second later, the crowd kind of got it and was like, oh, what is this? That's crazy. Why is this in my Uncharted game? But it was totally positive. I mean, I don't think there was anybody in the audience going like, oh, jeez,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And I'm stoked for it, so how did you feel about that, Ernest?
I mean, I'm positive for it. It'll be cool to, go back to those sequences and just try all the different options.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think that's mainly why it's there. Is just it's a little extra agency and something to go back and check out
Mm-hmm.
when you play through again.
We didn't really get any kind of inclination, as far as I know, of kind of the impact that that's going to have in terms of story or plot development or where things are going to lead. Because
Right.
I mean, what we saw, it was just a choice between through basically the outcomes of the first three games, or the core three games, and that it just kind of faded off, and then it came back, and then he's just like, "Whoa, this is unbelievable." Here you talk about, and then it was just, well, it could have been any of those, and it didn't seem like it really affected anything in that particular dialogue discussion. So,
Part of me does hope that part of me hopes that they kind of made that more concise for the trailer, because I would have actually liked to have heard some more lines about that story. I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
really, that was probably the coolest thing about that moment for me, is that particular choice between those three stories was kind of a nostalgia point. Like, I was like, oh my god, those are the three games, and what's he gonna choose? And I was trying to think in that situation, which one am I gonna choose? Like, which story did I love the most? Or if I was talking to Sam, which thing would I feel like was most important to tell him 1st? So
yeah, I kind
Yeah.
of thought they were going to go through all three of the options in the little trailer, just to show, or at least one or two, like the first two, just to show that there was a difference of some kind. But
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to say. We're still on a speculation point, but my feeling is that with how hard it seems to develop these games, I mean, with all of its games, it seems like Naughty Dog is working to the bone down to like 0 hour, like the last possible day. I mean, they're eking everything they can to get the extra juice out of these cutscenes, and if only from a time perspective, I feel like they probably won't have much of a story impact, if only because they'll need to develop extra cutscenes for those
right,
presumably the branching moments that would happen. And I don't know, I feel like that's not a Naughty Dog thing, so then it leaves me in a weird place where hopefully the choices do mean something, because if there's only like 3 or 4 of them and they're just kind of these throwaway, hey, remember this moment from Uncharted 2, then it would be kind of like, oh,
yeah.
this is fine, but it's not adding much.
No,
So
that's what I think they're going to be, mainly just kind of little added spice to let players of the whole franchise basically kind of decide what the best moments in Drake's history were to them, like kind of in that scene, like you were saying, to pick the one that meant the most to them. And I don't think, from what they showed, and obviously we don't know a lot yet, but it doesn't seem like it's going to really affect the story a lot, or any kind of outcome of what happens at the scene. I think they'll be fairly generalized kind of scenes that will work with whatever answer you take. But I think they'll just be like a
Right.
specific section of dialogue that'll, like, he'll say something immediately after, there'll only be like a few seconds for each one that's a little different. But I don't think it's not going to be like a Paragon Renegade type of thing, like Mass Effect. It's not
No,
going to
certainly
change
not.
anything.
yeah, he's
That
not going to get like
drastically.
white sickly skin by the end of the game if he's just doing evil options. Drake, you need to consume all the conduits.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty crazy, but it's gonna be interesting. I think we should probably just preface this. I don't know how far we are gonna go into any of this kind of spoilery territory going on, but I think it's pretty safe to say, to warn everybody, that if you haven't played the games and you're catching up in the collection, we're more than likely going to be talking about some characters that show up later on and kind of their history in the game,
Yep.
in the series. So, I mean, if you don't want to hear any of that stuff, feel free to tune out now. But please keep listening if you're interested in that. It's not going to be anything. I don't think we're going to really talk about anything huge that hasn't been talked about before. So,
But maybe ending stuff and
Right,
the
but-
fates of certain characters.
yeah, but one of the things that we found out immediately in this, I don't know if it was really confirmed before this trailer, but at the end, when he was talking to his brother after the story happened, and he talked about the stuff that he got enough earnings from his adventures to pay for his house and all the stuff, and he said in his engagement ring, and he's like, oh, I'm married. He's like, Elena, the girl from the stories, I married her. And they're just like,
Yeah.
oh, this happened, they did it, yes. And
Yeah,
it's
for
like,
sure. They finally brought him back. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's curious about that is that in Uncharted 3, you've got the scenes with the ring, but it's never clear in 3 whether they. I guess if you look at it, it's a very simple band, so it probably is a wedding band, but we don't know how long they were together, or what really happened there in terms of the length of time. So yeah, it's definitely a reveal that they're again married instead of
Do you
just
think-
together.
Do you think he has a kid in this one?
No. There's no way. I can't imagine. I mean, well,
I'm not gonna say
Elena
never.
looked super pissed when, like, in the end of the... It was the extended trailer from
Elena's
what was
pissed,
in...
man.
Yeah.
Dude, Elena's pissed.
So it's the extended footage of what was shown at
That
E3.
was at E3, right? Yeah.
Following up after that. That was mainly... That wasn't at the conference. They got released afterwards. It was what you saw behind closed doors at first, Kyle, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was... But at the end of that, when they're, like, after all this big thing happened, then... Sully's there, and it's Nate and his brother, and they're all talking. They're just like, yeah, we got this great idea, and this is all where the pirate treasure is. And they're going on, and they walk into this room, and all of a sudden Elena's standing there, and she just, like, looks really, really pissed. And then he's just like, oh, shit.
Well, doesn't
Yeah,
she say
my
something like, "Oh, some business trip or something"?
Yeah, it's like you seem to, like, gone a little too... Or you seem to took quite a turn or something, or
But
whatever.
man, the way she says that, like the
Yeah.
sheer disappointment in her voice when she like says that to man,
Yeah.
that was haunting. That was so chilling.
Yeah, that
how they
was
did that.
really
was done
great.
so well. Yeah, I feel like let's on the issue of the kid, right? I
Mm-hmm.
feel like she wouldn't be there if they did have a kid at that moment
Right.
because the kid would need taking care of, and I feel like Elena is a responsible enough person to
Mm-hmm.
do that herself and find some other way to get in contact with Nate, because if she realizes Nate runs off, it's a pretty simple matter to just call Sully or call one of her contacts as a journalist and try to figure out what's going on. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
which is also an interesting point, because why would she her following him, if anything, might indicate that she kind of knows already the sort of trouble they're in or what their mission is, and maybe thinks that she can help in some way. Because
Right.
she went through all the trouble of finding this motel that they're staying at, traveling cross
Right.
country to get to them. So I would feel like there might be some impetus there, and she might, at that point, Drake might not know she knows what's going on.
Well, I think
Or
she
maybe
probably
does,
knows
that's
more,
why
but
she's there.
I don't think she's there to try to help. I think she's there to just, like, take
Try
him
and
away.
reel him back
she's
in.
she's the parent who found out their kid snuck out to a party, and she's going there to get him back. That's pretty much that's like the mentality I got.
Drake's
from
like,
that.
come on, you're
But she
embarrassing
like,
me.
but in terms of like the kid thing, I'd almost say for sure that there's going to be some kind of reveal about her being pregnant at some point. Which that easily
yeah.
that could have been like, I mean, that easily could be the thing, is like, you need to stop adventuring now because we're either wanting to have a kid or the kid is on its way, so
Yeah.
you need to stop. And then he's just still kind of got, it's not so real for him yet that he's still got that itch and he has to keep doing this. And his brother's back and he's like, yeah, we got
Yeah.
one last big bang before they have to settle down with the family. And
There's an interesting note to that, is that a while back, let me see the date of this article, I pulled this up via GameSpot, September 28th, Uncharted 4's main themes revealed, and back at this interview, Druckmann said, and I quote, "With Uncharted 4, as we were building it, we were realizing more and more what the theme is. It's that balance between pursuing your passions and being with the ones you love, and what happens when you have to choose between those two things."
right.
And of course, you could apply that to just Elena and be like, "Oh, well, that's what they're talking about." But that would seem a little bit safe to me, or a little bit like, well, we've kind of already tread that ground before. I think the stakes need to be a little higher in Uncharted 4.
You know what would be great is if Elena's mom came in. Like, his mother-in-law just like comes in and chews him out in a scene, and just like, oh, that'd be hilarious.
Oh, man.
I would.
In-laws.
I do hope there is some comic. Well, I know there's going to be comic relief in the game because we've already seen it in some of the trailers. But one thing that I was maybe not hesitant about, but just a little wary of when it was first, here's Uncharted 4, the Naughty Dog's next game after doing The Last of Us. There was a small part of me that worried maybe this is going to be a little more on the serious side. It's going to be a slight departure from the line that the Uncharted games have been following, just because they've got, like, they just
Because
came
of
off
just the
making one of the
recency.
most, yeah, they just made one of the most depressing games of all time with all this horrible stuff that happens. And so maybe, and of course, Neil Druckmann, I believe, wrote The Last of Us, now
Yeah.
writing Uncharted 4. So that there's that storytelling, like, that's his storytelling sense, I feel like, to kind of go down the more mature path. And so, yeah.
Well, he did
hopefully there's
Uncharted
enough-
2 as well, so
That's true.
I mean,
Just
yeah,
hopefully there's
Druckmann and
enough,
Straley did Uncharted 2 and then The Last of Us, and then now they got taken on for this one.
Right.
After
I feel like they're
all
not
that.
straying too much from based on the footage that we've seen. They're
I
not
hope
straying
not.
too far.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look
from
like it.
the sort of the feel, and there's still that fun element, humor
Mm-hmm.
that's persistent. So it's
Yeah.
not as gritty as like The Last of Us was.
Yeah, and I'd actually say that would just kind of catching up on some of the news and for preparing for talking about it on this podcast, it was actually really refreshing, and I got super excited for it. More so than I ever have been for Uncharted 4 after kind of seeing some of the other game footage. And I think a lot of that has to do with that I was still coming off of games that were similar in experience to Uncharted games at the time, or like when it first came out. Well, I mean, talking about The Last of Us was a while ago, but similar style type of games like Infamous Second Son, games of that kind of nature the games of that nature at the time, where right now after doing this I'm coming off of Fallout 4, which is totally different in terms of like storytelling and it's not a theatrical production by any stretch of the imagination in terms of how they present it. So seeing this and seeing
fourth grade theater,
but seeing this and seeing the nuances of the gameplay and the characters and the interactions between them was just like that. At this point, from kind of having that break with spending so much time in Fallout, it just seemed revolutionary almost to just kind of see that style of game again.
Yeah, it scratches an itch for sure.
So it was really cool, and especially like the E3, the PSX footage from 2014 where there's a shootout in the forest.
Yep.
Just seeing him sneaking through the foliage and just the smoothness of knocking out enemies or flying in from the sky and punching them out, taking their guns, and just sneaking around and using the grappling hook and all that. That made me really, really excited to jump back into it.
Yeah. For me, the excitement moment recently was the cutscene that was revealed during Naughty Dog's panel at PSX, which is the Nadine Ross and Sully cutscene, where they're at the party, they're at the gala, wearing their formal attire, and it was something about seeing those two characters interact with Nathan Drake, like really no part of that. He's down in the basement with Sam doing his thing, but like seeing Sully and Nadine interact, I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to get a sense that what are these other characters doing while Drake's off doing his thing, and to me that kind of completes my confidence in the story, I guess. Obviously, not that they were ever going to not have alternate characters interacting, but you kind of get a sense of the whole picture, and you're like, all right, there's something really cool going on here. We're going to get to see some of this interplay, like people making jokes about each other and expressing some shared history. So it'll be really cool to see how Nadine fits into the picture, and even how there's a mysterious character that we don't know much about, because at that panel, Neil Druckmann addressed the issue of Laura Bailey playing Nadine Ross, a white woman playing a black woman in the game, and he said that there is a white character played by a black male or a black man or a black actor. I don't know if he said the gender. So who is that person, right? Because that's got to be somebody who at least has a more than a bit part if they have a mocap thing going on and a voice actor of some prominence. So I'll be, I say that I'm curious to find that out, but to be honest, I really feel like I'm hitting that point where I'm ready to not see very much more. Like, I'm at peak excitement for this game. I don't feel like anything they show me from now is going to get me more excited. It's just going to peel back layers that I want to uncover for myself.
Yeah, I'm definitely, after this podcast for sure, I don't want to talk about this again until the game comes out and played through a bunch of it.
We should be able to give our simultaneous review like the week after release. We'll just blitz through it on opening weekend.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I always
finish
the Uncharted games usually within like a few days.
They're like 10 hours.
Yeah.
So that's
doable.
Can do it in a day.
Yeah.
What character are you guys?
One night.
Oh, jeez.
And I didn't intend to. I just was.
The first Uncharted, I did that too. I think I beat it in like 6 hours, or that was like the second time I played it.
Nice.
It's just like I bought it. That was after I rented it, played through it, and then I liked it so much I had to buy it, and then I just like beat it in 6 hours. And I was like, well, that was shorter than I remembered. It's like, okay.
It's kind of a revelation going back to play that game as part of the Nathan Drake collection, because they made very subtle improvements to the aiming with a patch, and it like actually is really, really competent, whereas the original game was kind of floaty and enemies were just really obnoxiously elusive, but they kind of brought it a little more in line with Uncharted 2 in its aiming, I feel like, and it kind of makes the whole game a real riot, just a joy to play from front to back. Well, before we move on to the characters, I'm curious, who are you guys excited, like, of the cast? Maybe, the easy answer is Drake, but who else are you most excited to see what's going on with their lives, like what's going on with them.
Well, this is a good transition into that. There was another. I think if you have the article up, Kyle, I'm not sure if you would do or not, but there was
Right.
a mention about Chloe and Cutter being involved in A Thief's End and showing up about that. And I'm trying to remember exactly what the details were.
So I know from playing, seeing the multiplayer trailer released a while ago, and then
Right,
also
yep.
playing the game, that you can play as Cutter in the multiplayer beta, so you can see his character model and what he looks like and everything. Chloe does appear in the beta's trailer, or the multiplayer trailer, but her model isn't in the beta, so maybe they're still working on that. But
Right.
yeah, so they definitely went through the effort of at least doing like the next gen versions of them, right? Which is kind of cool
Yeah.
to see what they look like on PS4.
But there's a lot of
Yeah.
models and there's a lot of characters in the beta that are they're either no longer living or not. They can't be present in the game anymore. So that's not really indicative of them being part of the narrative
Sure.
in any stretch.
Very
But
true.
I thought there was a story that talked about them, and I can't remember exactly what the details were. But if they do have any kind of substantial presence or just kind of little cameos that show up, I'd really want to see. Like, I'm trying to remember how Cutter's kind of story ended in 3.
He broke his leg in Syria. by
Yeah,
trying
he
to
fell
jump.
off of there.
He and Chloe actually disappeared after that point in the game, because what happens in there is that Drake and Sully decide to continue pursuing
Yeah.
Marlowe and Talbot. Yeah,
Yeah.
they decide, but then Chloe kind of admonishes him and kind of says like, "We're bowing out. You're crazy. You need
Yeah,
to."
I couldn't remember
check
if they
yourself.
showed up again in like some kind of random scene in like a
No,
room
that's it.
together.
And then their fate is kind of
Yeah.
unknown.
So
from that
so they're easily available.
totally
So we did
together.
have an article on PSU that
Good.
said Naughty Dog hints at Chloe and Cutter for Uncharted 4. I thought I remembered seeing this. Naughty Dog's Arnmeyer said, "I don't know if I'm at liberty to speculate about all that right now. We've been
But here's
pretty
the answer."
tight-lipped about the story and the fates of characters, and we haven't revealed everyone who's in the game yet. There's a little bit more to reveal soon."
Okay,
And
so I think
and then
that's
obviously
probably pretty
our
safe.
article goes on to say that they show up like in the multiplayer trailer, like Chloe does, and then
Yeah,
Cutter's there and the models and stuff.
yeah. So I'd say that's a pretty safe bet that they're going to show up to some degree in
Yeah.
the game at some point. So I think that'll be really interesting to see where those two. I think for me, where they go to, because I really liked both of their characters. Like I really liked how they how they were introduced and their backstories and
Chloe especially has that history. Like I will be if it.
yeah.
I'm hoping Cutter shows up. I mean, I won't be like heartbroken if Cutter doesn't, but Chloe especially, because she was introduced in Uncharted 2, it's like she has to,
Yeah.
because this is the last game. This is the last hurrah. The only thing I would say about Cutter is that he's awesome. If they don't include him, that'll kind of suck. But he at least doesn't have the same gravity.
Because he has history with all those people, but he doesn't have the intimacy that Chloe does, and he also hasn't had the exposure that she's had in the game
Right.
so far. So, yeah, I think I'd want to see what happens with her most of all, and where that all ends up. So, for
I'm a
character,
fan of Sully. I want to see what Sully's up to, what he's been doing.
Sully is looking old as hell.
Oh,
he
he's
looks
an
really
old man.
different in this.
Yeah.
Like not just like upscaled. He just looks way different.
Yeah,
compared to the old ones.
his face is a little more shapely. Not in like the overweight sense, but like I noticed his chin is like a lot more
He's
bulbous,
jowlier.
maybe. Yeah, like jowlier. Yeah. It's got more girth to all the facial region, but
Yeah.
yeah. It's interesting. I have been pretty pleased so far with like the way Drake looks and the way Elena looks, because there's always that struggle of like, well, it's a
Elena
generational
looks
transition.
amazing.
Yeah, she does. But it's a generational transition, and you're like, where, it's possible that they could lose what I think the character looks like. But at the end of the day, this is their vision. So,
And they also had an evolution from 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3. So
definitely.
I mean, it's not like it's a drastic. I mean, it's not like we aren't used to drastic changes at this point. So but there's definitely Drake is definitely truer to his Uncharted 3 character model in this game. He's more closely resembles that than the other ones, I'd say.
And I think the biggest jump for Elena happened between 2 and 3. I remember because
I think for most of them,
Yeah.
part of it was the eyes. That was like
the
the big
sparkly,
thing.
the sparkly,
Dual
yeah.
black. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
that
some-
was like
yeah,
the
there's-
biggest thing. It almost looked wrong after when playing Uncharted 3 when they actually made him look good. It looked like it was off. Because
eyes
I got
weren't
so
scared
used to 2. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so that's the other thing that gets talked about all the time is like, do you think that they're gonna kill off Sully? He's talking about Sully's story. Like, is Sully gonna die? Is Drake gonna die? Will Sam die? Like, is somebody gonna end up being killed in this, or is it gonna be a happier ending? Because there was another article I saw that we had talking about how they don't want. They basically they don't want Uncharted 4 to turn into like an Indiana Jones ending, and how they're confident that it's gonna be like the high note of the series. So
The high note in terms of like the best game, the best story yet.
like the best experience that they've had for the series. So it's
Okay.
if they killed somebody off, would that make it? Could that be the high point of it, or make it that memorable game, or would it just make it distasteful?
If it's done correctly, it can definitely make it memorable in a good way. And this is
Yeah.
totally me reaching into my own head for some speculation. But if I'm going to walk through a hypothetical scenario where one character has to die, and then what would the motivation be, and why does it happen? I could see Sam dying as a way, one, because it's low risk. Like, in the
Right.
sense that, you'll piss some people off because Sam seems pretty cool, but he's only been in one game and he's introduced in this one. So
Yeah.
so it's low risk on Naughty Dog's part, but also Drake is like when Drake first meets Sam in that port in his office. I mean, the emotion in his face, the relief, the unbridled joy at like
Right.
seeing his long lost brother is so real in that moment that I could see Sam being this this kind of impetus for Drake all along. Like, Sam is the reason Drake is going on this journey, and then Sam becomes the polar opposite to Elena, or at least Elena represents the things you love, and then Sam represents the things you desire, like your adventure.
Elena's neutral good and Sam's chaotic neutral.
Exactly. And then because of that, one side's going to win out in the end, as always happens, and we can pretty safely predict the realization that Drake will come to by the end of the game. And is there, I guess in my mind's eye, I can see a scene where Drake and Sam have their last little face to face, and Sam kind of maybe Sam's passing would represent that part of Drake's life. Kind of
He
dying
dives
forever.
on a grenade
You're making
for
me
him.
tear up right now.
Oh.
I don't want that to happen.
But that would be a really easy way for them to wrap up the series too, for that to be his last hurrah, because his brother now his only excuse to go back to adventuring is now gone because his brother has been killed, and now he's like just firm to set down.
He's just like, okay, this is like too dangerous,
Right, and he has
people
to
are
settle
dying.
down. Yeah.
Yeah,
The lesson in the story almost writes itself. He gets back into adventuring because Sam asked him to, and we, the player, think, "Come on, Drake, what are you doing? You've left that life behind you." When really, before all is said and done, it was because of family that he got back into it. He already knows what's important in life. He already knows what to love.
You should write cards for Hallmark.
Drake cards, just Naughty Dog Christmas cards.
But yeah,
So that's what I feel like.
I don't
my
think they're gonna
speculation.
do the Sully thing. They already toyed with that.
yeah, that was
idea.
the thing that I was gonna say was like he's already died twice. Spoilers. So it's like, can they actually do it this time, and would it even have an effect on people? Because everybody would just basically deny it until the credits roll.
Yeah, and that would be the shitty thing about it, is that you kill him off, and let's say it's for real this time, and the player waits. We wait 2 chapters, 3 chapters. He doesn't show back up. It's like you've almost made the moment a little more dead, because like we've just it's happened so many times, and we're expecting it to be a red herring, and then when it isn't, we're like, well, shit, because I was expecting it to be
how
a red
depressing that would be.
herring. And I didn't even, and it's like I didn't even get the chance to really mourn him. Like, I didn't have the emotion that you would want me to have in his dying moment.
It just ends like the Dark Knight Rises, or the Dark Knight Rises, where he's just like standing over Sully's grave and like talking to him and saying how much he misses him, and then credits roll, and it's like, oh god.
And then Sully's in a coffee shop.
Yeah, somewhere in Italy, just like
he lifts his sunglasses and nods slightly at the camera. I thought you were going to go
Michael Caine just nods his head.
I thought you were gonna say Sully flies out over like the Hudson River or over the Pacific Ocean to carry the nuke away from America.
No.
Yeah, I
No,
don't
not
think they'll
that.
do it. It's just like it's like what deaths have become in comic books, where everyone's just
Yeah.
anticipating them coming back. So
Mhm.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything, and for Elena to die would just be too depressing. Like that would be the
That would
direction.
wreck. Yeah, that would wreck the whole series.
It was over at that
that would
point. That's
destroy
what
that would
it's
destroy
made
Nate as a man.
Yeah.
You know?
and then you leave the series on that note, and it's like, well, shit. Okay, that is that. I'm not afraid that it's going to happen. I really don't think it will, but that would be the one thing where it's like, well, Naughty Dog took the mature thing a little too far. The dark style went way overboard by doing that because it's not in the spirit of the series.
Yeah. No, there's no way I can. There's no way she's gonna die.
Yeah.
Like they just can't do that from
But
like a
Drake-
fan perspective and from like a narrative perspective. They can't do that.
Drake's an interesting one, though. I don't know. What do you
If
guys
he
think
died-
about that? Is there a possibility?
I think it is a possibility. I think that his brother Sam is more likely, though.
I think Naughty Dog is one of the few studios that would really be ballsy enough to just kill their main character after all this time, because it's become it's basically having an unfavorable outcome has become just like such a bad thing now for I think a lot of developers in terms
kind
of
of
fan
like-
reaction.
Yeah.
So it's like, but I think they could do it, or they would do it if they wanted it to go that way. I don't think that they would want the series to end in that way, because it's such an upbeat and more just kind of, it's a goofy adventure series where the
Yeah.
hero always gets the girl and wins and all that. So I can't
It'd be-
imagine he would ever die. It would just completely change the meaning of Uncharted.
It'd be pretty shitty to go back and play multiplayer as Drake's character too.
Yeah. Your characters, you play as Drake. Whenever after you beat the game, he's just like see through, looks like a ghost, and just kind of running around.
That'd be really interesting to see like a study over the years of like, did the single player ending to a game affect the multiplayer return rate and how people actually want it. Like, I don't want to come back. This game was depressing as hell. Like,
Yeah,
I think it's a risky move killing off your main character, and I think even within the studio itself, there would be a lot of people opposed to it.
Right.
I know, like Kojima wanted to kill off, I think both Solid Snake and Otacon, at least Solid Snake, at the end of MGS4, and so many people on his staff were like, no, don't do that.
you can hint to it in the credits,
Yeah.
but you can't do it
I
in
mean,
the
yeah, it's
Right.
like he was going to, and then there was like a little thing at the very, like you thought he died, or you
Yeah,
weren't sure.
Spoilers.
But
Sorry.
then, well, I mean, at the end, then there's like a scene at the end of the credits where Big Boss shows up and starts talking to him, and it's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
now I'm not nearly. Well, I mean, that it was intriguing in a different way, but it wasn't as it changed. It changed the impact of it. It was about the same, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, clearly there's there's like an infinite amount of examples you could pick that show where the lead character has died in entertainment, and it's become an amazing, like, just legendary piece of work. But in games,
Yeah.
it's not that common, really, in
No, it really
anywhere.
isn't.
So it's still new territory in that, right? But I think Naughty Dog would be one of the few studios that would do it. I don't think there's any reason for them to do it, though. In this game, it wouldn't
Yeah.
match the tone of the story that's been told until now. It
And
would
I
be
don't
just totally
see
out
it-
of place.
And I don't see the narrative purpose it would serve, because at least
No,
in the
it'd
case
just
of
be shock
Sam,
value.
yeah, there's an emotional impact to other people dying in the way it changes your main character. But when the main character, if he were to die, then all that really changes is the people around him. But they were never the focus of the series to begin with. So
Yeah,
So why are we all of a sudden really focused on how Elena is transformed by Nate's death? Like, Elena has never been the point or the main main hero. So
yeah.
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see for that for sure. I don't know for story and stuff. I'm not sure they're going to be in South Africa, correct? Is primarily where it's going to be. I think I remember seeing that, or in Africa is where the pirate treasure is.
Yeah, I think
supposed to
the trailer that you saw, Will, with the shootout, from last year's
Right,
PSX,
yeah, that one's
I think that's Madagascar, which is
Yeah,
South
right.
Africa
Yeah, off
island.
the coast of Africa.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that. Oh my God, that looks so beautiful. Like
Wasn't
that was
that crazy?
insane just to see the mountains and the range there and the forest and
What I love seeing is how the foliage like parts as Nate
Yeah,
walks through it. It's just
Hmm.
so well done.
that whole addition is just adds so much depth to the game. Like I
Well, it
love how they
finally
keep
gets a.
expanding on the stealth in
Hmm.
from game to game, and they're making it not like not to the degree of like Last of Us in terms of just like being scared to move, but they're doing a really good
Yeah,
job with that. Be creative and making you feel like you're in control of your surroundings.
and I feel like in terms of stealth, this was kind of the missing thing. Like to me, the stealth
Yeah,
in the previous games always felt like a more gamey aspect
it's
of
just yeah,
Uncharted.
it's just kind of like oh,
It was really just
they
like,
had to add something, so we'll add this.
yeah, and just stay out of their line of sight, like do kind of janky video game things so that they don't happen to look across your path.
Yeah.
But this is more of an organic sort of similar to how the cover system and movement has been improving over time. This is more of a fluid kind of thing. Like you can do stealth at the same time you're moving from one piece of cover to the next, or you can do stealth at the same time that you're climbing, and it all kind of melts
Hmm.
together in a way that I think it would have been nice if it could have all along, but stealth was kind of this sort of janky afterthought, I guess.
Yeah, and still in his just like little commentaries to himself as he's moving around are as good as ever, and there might even be more of them than in the past games where he's just running
Yeah.
around examining the environment and talking shit about the bad guys while he's trying to run away from them and all that. So it's just like that's just really exciting to see that in the fluidity of the game and how it's progressed. And this looks like this looks like what Naughty Dog had envisioned from the start for Uncharted. Like what they wanted that game to be
Mm.
is like finally happening.
And they're going
Yeah.
all in. This is their last one, and I think
Yeah,
they're trying to pull all the stops and really refine everything that they've worked up to at this
yeah,
point.
and not just in the
Yeah.
story, but also in multiplayer. Which
Oh,
Because
right.
it is, yeah, true, the multiplayer thing. Real quick, I was gonna say because it is the last one, I really do hope it's, if not significantly longer, like meaningfully longer than the previous games. I just feel like we've
mm,
seen probably, well, yeah, three distinct locations now. We've seen
right.
Madagascar, we've seen South America, and wherever that ballroom, that gala takes place. And so you've already
Mm,
kind of got three geographic locations, and Uncharted games have typically maxed out at like four, maybe five geographic locations. So part of me is like, oh, are we seeing kind of all the acts of the story? I just really hope that this is the last hurrah, and so there's plenty of content, there's plenty of things that are going to totally come out of the blue, and we haven't even seen hints about
yeah,
yet. I just really want
the
the game
set
to be
pieces. I can't
meatier.
wait to see what is going to be the big thing that happens
Yeah.
in this game. So, but yeah, for the multiplayer,
Hmm.
2 and 3, yeah, 2 had multiplayer. 2 and 3 were both just. I mean, they were so unique that they were just and well done. They were some of the best multiplayer modes that I've ever played for a game. They definitely don't have the lasting audience that others do, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seems
I
like
don't
they've
last
cranked it up to
three.
11 in the new one for sure. And did you get to play the beta so far,
Yeah,
Kyle?
yeah, I've played not too much, but maybe 3 or 4 hours of the beta. Enough to do maybe 6 or 7 matches. So
Oh, sure.
definitely got a feel of it. Boy, I tell you what, the first time you even take a step in the beta, it's a weird thing to focus on. But like when you first start to move your character and just remember how Uncharted feels, and then the
Hmm.
slight changes they've made to the feel this time, it's like, oh, okay, cool, Uncharted 4 is here, and it's solid. They didn't like you don't suddenly weigh 200 pounds like moving really sluggishly.
Oh,
It's still
okay.
Uncharted. Yeah, it feels great. So yeah, I the the only thing open in the beta, I believe, is team deathmatch, and
Okay.
it's two maps. There's a map that seems to take place in a similar environment as the Madagascar trailer. Like it's heavily wooded and you're up on high cliffs.
Hmm.
There isn't so much foliage to kind of stealth through, but in multiplayer that might not really work anyway. And then the other map takes place in South America, same thing that we saw in this year's E3 trailer. Kind of
No
some
shit.
huts, some favelas, some sheet metal kind of buildings. So yeah, I think the easiest place to start with describing Uncharted 4's multiplayer is probably Uncharted 3. It definitely bears more similarity to how mobile that game was and how fast your character moves, how much
Hmm.
vertical space you have to deal with. But really, it kind of takes some cues from Counter Strike, actually, in a weird way.
Oh, okay.
So one of the biggest change ups is that you earn cash throughout the match for different actions that you do. Kills. Well,
Yep.
I should say first, when you down an enemy, that's different from a kill. If you reduce someone's health to 0, you put them in a down state, and they can kind of crawl away, get behind cover, maybe have a teammate revive them. So you separately get points for downing somebody, and then if you're able to, run up and finish them off with a kick or a few more bullets. So there's points for that. There's points for deploying items, things that heal your teammates, completing. Well, since it's only team deathmatch, your objective is killing. But
Yeah.
so all these things rack up cash for you, and then you spend that cash at any time. Even if you're just out in the world, you bring up the touchpad, and you can spend that cash on things that you've pre-equipped to your character. So you might spend $600 of cash on the statue El Dorado, and you'll deploy it into the midst, and it'll start sending, just clouds of evil at nearby enemies.
Clouds of evil.
Or you might spend less money, just $200 to upgrade your shotgun to the better version of the shotgun, or give yourself an extra grenade, something like that. You can also deploy sidekicks. You can spend cash to deploy a NPC brute or a sniper or one of the classic chokehold artists.
Yeah, there's like a hunter, I think is what they said was.
Oh, is that what they're called?
That's what I was going to ask if they had that in the beta, because that was one of the things they featured in one of the trailers they featured during PSX after the keynote, I think.
It's not an instant kill like it used to be in co-op Uncharted, where the choke guys would just get up to you and you're just done for.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it is really kind of deadly, because if I deploy a choke artist and he runs up behind cover, and they're so fast, it's hard to hit them with bullets. But then he grabs you. Well, it's really easy for me to just finish you off, because you're kind of being held in place and you can't do anything. So yeah, it's interesting playing this match, because you kind of have to make choices about, well, what's the flavor of this match that I'm in right now? Like, is grenades going to work better for me here? Is it worth spending money on a sidekick, or does the other team seem pretty capable of dealing with that? And kind of making those split-second choices, balanced with the fact that the items get more expensive as the match goes on. So if I buy the sidekick for 600, he's going to cost 800 or 1,000 the next time I want to use him. So, but then of course, if you never spend money on it, then you've let that part of your equipment go to waste, never using it. So, yeah, it's interesting. And then with the the movement and the feel of things, it's very much Uncharted 3. It's got that third-person cover-based shooting like we expect. I noticed that the camera is a little more pulled out than I think it's been in the past, and I do hope that single player is a little more pulled in. I think the camera's pulled out, if nothing else, to just give you a better view of the action. But yeah, your character is a little bit smaller on screen than in the past games. But you've got the grappling hook. You've got your you can use that on the multiplayer maps. There's some cool places to do that. Although I found that you really just put yourself, you're just like a dummy in the air, like you kind of just, hey, shoot me, I can't shoot you back. But it's still fun to use. There's some rooftops you can slide down to get quickly from one place to another. And, you definitely still have your choke points, these kind of like, that South America map, there's like a market in the middle, there's like a plaza where, people just kind of tend to congregate because there's a ton of cover there. So then that's your moment to, okay, I'm going to go around, I'm going to flank them, I'm going to use the rooftops, and I'm going to try to do it quietly. I'm not going to fire bullets because that puts me on the radar. And maybe I have a perk equipped that makes my footsteps stealthy, so that even if somebody has, say, the Staff of Ir Manco, which is from the book Uncharted the Fourth Labyrinth, if they have that deployed, it's like a team-wide radar. But if I have a certain perk, I still won't be detected even by that.
Okay.
I think that's how that perk works. But so yeah, you can kind of both select perks that complement your playstyle, and then also say, okay, I've been playing this map a lot this weekend. I know that this is the strategy that the opposing team tends to use, so I'm going to make a loadout that really kind of counters that. Like, maybe the player base isn't being very stealthy these days, so I'm going to be stealthy, or what have you.
Interesting. So there's a lot of nuance to it than just getting power-ups. You have counter power-ups as well, or you can be strategic in how you use them to counter.
How much?
Yeah,
how much health? How much health do you feel you have? Is it less? Is it more than previous games?
It feels like slightly more, actually.
Okay.
which is maybe a little weird because I feel like the trend is always slightly less, slightly less.
Right, right. It keeps getting like faster and faster.
Exactly, and closer to the Call of Duty style. But yeah, I mean, I've noticed that like it's never a ton. Like you never feel like your enemies are bullet sponges, but I've definitely had some moments where I'm like,
Come on.
yeah, like oh Jesus, that clip didn't finish you, really? You know, just kind of these split second little frustrations. But the same goes for you. You know, you can take, excuse me, enough bullets that would normally kill you in other games, and still your screen will be gray, but you'll still have that moment to roll away to get behind cover, or maybe a teammate will come in and distract them, something like that. A couple other mechanical changes, though. You don't have well, the reticle for your aiming is a lot simpler this time. If I recall, you kind of had, if you had a shotgun in Uncharted 3 or a pistol, like the reticles were very, very different to kind of represent that weapon. And here, I feel like your normal AK-47 just has like a single white dot. There might be something else going on there, but like that's what sticks out in my head. It's kind of that very clean, sort of minimal reticle. And then your shotgun is more of a parentheses, but it's still kind of slim and a little more subtle. There's a couple things in the game balance-wise that definitely need some work. I think that's the benefit of doing this beta, right? It's not just for networking, but I think Naughty Dog genuinely wants to. They've been playing it so much internally, but it's like when we put it in the hands of players, like are there strategies and off-balance things we never realized? And I have noticed that the sniper sidekick, the NPC that you can plant, which is really kind of cool. I'm trying to think, like in Fallout 4 settlements, when you have like a floating object in front of you and you just drop it, it's kind of like that, where you have this floating dude in front of you and you pick the spot where you want to perch him and like, hey, you snipe from here, and then he appears out of thin air because it's Uncharted. And I've noticed that the sniper seems kind of ineffectual. Like he takes probably 3 or 4 seconds to line up a shot on an enemy, and that's plenty of time for a human player to take cover and realize what's happening.
Sure.
And then all you have to do is really get up close to him, and then he's dead almost instantly. Conversely, the Juggernaut sidekick, like the brute with the LMG, is really hard to take down. Like takes 2 or 3 grenades and a really good bit of gunfire, and by the time you're unloading gunfire into him, that's when the team just comes up behind you and kills you, because you're so distracted by this Juggernaut. So, yeah, there's that. And then, last thing, I'll let you guys ask questions, is that I've noticed that the hit detection is a little bit wonky, I think. Like
You were telling me about that the other day.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a networking thing either, because I can usually tell when it's just a lag issue and either my internet's not keeping up or theirs isn't. But this has felt like the action's totally smooth, and the person is within my gun's reticle when I fire, and then it just doesn't seem to hit them. Like maybe they're running directly to the left or right, and they kind of like move out of the reticle as I'm firing, but it just it's almost like the bullet sort of lagged behind them, if that makes sense, or my reticle is sort of not really representative of where your bullets are actually landing. Maybe that might be it.
Maybe they're having you compensate for movements more. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it could be. Maybe they want you to do that, or just the way that the game is kind of registering player movement. So yeah, just something I've noticed, and it's generally pretty good. I've noticed that, like, if you've got something like an AK-47, much more than the previous games, you can really turn that into a long-range weapon if you're good enough, because it's just got that really nice, satisfying feedback on the trigger. Like you can just kind of pop off a couple shots, like 1, 2, 3. And kind of keep that AK at like a sort of fire it like a semi-auto and really get some improved range out of it, because you're not spraying it all over the place. I feel like in Uncharted 3, you pretty much had the one fire mode for all your weapons, and it really didn't behoove you to be any more nuanced than that. But here you definitely can be and get some more accuracy.
Okay.
So you say does it feel a lot more fluid in terms of the running around? Because it seemed like they do, like you did say it's a little faster version, but that's what they keep pushing, is how this is a faster, action-packed Uncharted multiplayer, and you're gonna, like, the trailers always show them constantly running and moving, and all the kind of like the interplay between the characters and like guns being tossed to each other and catching them and running around. So like, how much of that would be true to kind of what they've been marketing for and advertising?
To be honest, it hasn't felt that way so far. I know that's their aim, but I do kind of tend to see people hunkering down a little bit, which just feels like Uncharted 3. You know, once you find a good spot,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of camp there for a few seconds, use that as your cover, and it definitely, yeah, the pace of the action doesn't seem too different from Uncharted 3 for that reason. People are still kind of hunkering down in their positions. Plenty of people will use the grappling hook and like willingly put themselves in harm's way because it's just so much fun to swing on it. Like, leap off a ledge and then, woo! Throw out the rope and you're swinging through the air, direct where you're going, and then leap off again. Like, I've definitely died 2 or 3 times because I really didn't need to be out there swinging, but it's just I wanted to make a cool moment out of it. You know, I'm going to swing around here and get behind you, but alas, not quite.
Have you done any aerial takedowns yet with it?
No, and I tried, but I'm not exactly sure how to trigger them. I don't know if it might be contextual, like it might be totally automatic if you can manage to land on them. But the one time I feel like within inches of landing on this guy, and it didn't happen for me. So maybe you hit square as you're coming down or something.
Oh, sure. That's what I assumed would probably have to happen. But
yeah,
so,
it didn't give me a prompt or anything.
So how many weapons are available in the beta right now? Like, what kind of range of...
Let me think. Well, the beta has, I think, 5 or 6 base loadouts, like presets that you can choose from. And then within those loadouts, you've got AK-47, you've got the FAL, you've got a pretty standard bolt-action sniper, the pistole is in there, the sawn-off shotgun is in there. I feel like there's another long-range weapon that's like between the FAL and the AK, like maybe a single shot instead of the FAL being burst fire. So it kind of runs the gamut, actually. There's a ton of weapons in the beta, and then plus, if you activate I don't know what it's called, but the purchase that upgrades your guns, then it, you know, theoretically your AK gets turned into an M4 or your FAL gets turned into something else. I do think there's a grenade launcher in there too. I feel like I've seen the icon for that.
So how many of the characters are open for the beta right now? Is it just a few of them? Is it all of them? Is it...
Yeah, surprisingly, I think it's like probably a dozen for each side. It's a lot. There's probably 10 to 12, and you know, on the heroes, you've got Drake, Sully, Elena, Cutter,
Chloe.
Not Chloe's the one. Oddly enough, Chloe is not on the
Really?
heroes beta. Yeah, she's just not in there. So I wonder if they're still working on her model. But there's a couple generic characters too, like, you know, this soldier guy named Gronk or whatever. Like, we don't know who this guy is. He probably had a bit part in one of the games or something, and we never knew his name. But then on the villain side, you've got Lazarevich, Marlowe,
Talbot one?
Talbot isn't, which is also weird.
Huh.
Kind of like the Chloe thing. Maybe he's not done yet. But you've got Flynn.
Oh, good.
I'm trying to think. From Uncharted 1, I don't think that Roman Navarro or Eddie Raja might be in there.
Yeah, he better be in there with his golden gun.
I'm sure he'll be in the final game. What's cool about the beta though is that you can earn points and actually, like, as you're playing, and like spend it on cosmetic upgrades. Like you can unlock Tuxedo Drake, Island
cool.
Elena, Tuxedo Sully, Fat Drake, I think, is in there. Donut Drake is in there. Yeah, so
Drake
returned.
It's fun. I think it's a really well put together beta. It runs well for the most part. I have had some connection issues where I get that kind of that white plug of death, you know, that appears in the middle of the screen in the middle of a match, and then I can't move. That's happened a little more often than it should, so I feel like it's you know, they're figuring things out on the network side. But yeah, it definitely, in terms of the cosmetic features and having so many characters to play as, plus you can make your own loadouts with the weapons, and that's actually an interesting point too. So you can make your own loadouts along with the presets they have in there, and the way that works is essentially on a point system. Like, you have up to I mean, I think it's similar to what Call of Duty has done with, what is that, like Pick 12 or Pick 21?
Pick 10 system?
The Pick 21.
Pick 21.
Yeah, so you've got something like 25 points you can allot to each loadout, and then say the AK-47 might cost 2 points. The Brute sidekick might cost 6 points, etc. So you play around with it that way.
So you can't have like the best of everything.
I
in your
wouldn't
loadout.
think so.
So that, I mean, that's a good way to kind of keep in check for balancing issues for new and experienced players in that way.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because when that might be a cool way they could balance it is not, adjust weapon accuracy and make slight changes to weapon damage. I know they did that a lot in Uncharted 3 when certain guns would rise to the top and become the most popular, but they could really just adjust the amount of points it costs to equip that gun, If the FAL is just ridiculously awesome and everybody's using it, well, let's bump it up from 4 points to 7 points for a couple weekends and see how that changes things.
Yeah, I think that'd be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, so I had a question. I had another question about the multiplayer, and I can't remember what it was.
Oh!
I don't know. But you said there were two maps available right now, you said, right?
Yep.
So do you know, this is what it was, do you know if there's any plan on releasing other game modes during the beta, or is it just going to be the deathmatch? Because one of the things that they advertised, or what they talked about in the Sidekick trailer, was talking about how you can work with your team, and it specifically was dealing with the heavy gunners and being able to flank around them and get through them in that kind of way, and using the sniper to distract other teammates to allow your other players to coordinate and get behind them and all that stuff. So
yeah, I'm not sure if they'll be introducing another mode. I just ran a quick Google search to try and find out, and I'm not seeing anything. So maybe not, but it is running through the weekend, so I'll check it out, see what's going on. Because if they introduce another mode, I'll definitely check that out.
Have they said anything about the returning modes, like the idle capture or whatever? I can't remember what the actual name.
Oh,
of that
yeah.
was.
I don't remember what that was called.
Because those were. Oh no, they did. I thought they did have that in the first multiplayer reveal trailer. I thought they showed something like that. Because that's just so uniquely Uncharted that they'd have to have that make a return.
At the very least, you'll be lugging around some mysticals, like these super powered things. Yeah, I'm not sure about the mode itself, but that is one aspect I didn't touch on much. I said the El Dorado statue is one great example, right? But what's cool to me about the 5 mysticals, or actually, apparently these 5 are just the ones in the beta. There's going to be more in the game. But these are fun callbacks to the series, too. Like I mentioned, the Staff of Ire Mankos from the 4th Labyrinth novel. There's also Indra's Eternity from the Eye of Indra motion comic. Remember that, Gem, on PS3?
Yeah.
So there's the Chintamani Stone from Uncharted 2, the Spirit of Jinn from Uncharted 3, and they've got cool aspects, like the Spirit of Jinn allows the player to teleport short distances, just like the demons from 3, but with the caveat that you can't take cover. And then the Chintamani Stone revives downed allies within its area of effect to full health instantly. The Staff of Ire
turns them into giant purple angry men.
and forces you to use the crossbow for the rest of the match. Yep. And then Indra's Eternity. This was a fun one with me. I think this is one that I was using with my loadout, because I picked the I don't know what you would call it, like the Blitzkrieg loadout, where you rush in with a shotgun, like you're supposed to just run around, sprint around, get close. And
the Lazarevich loadout.
The Lazarevich loadout, yes. And that mystical is Indra's Eternity, where you throw it, and this bubble of energy kind of detonates from the point of contact, and anyone caught within that bubble is essentially slowed down to like a crawl. Like it brings them to like 20% speed, and you can just rush right in there and just demolish everybody.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I think it's funny because there's the team tactic of Uncharted, where you want to stick together, you want to move together and travel together so you can support each other in firefights, but it's like these mysticals are never more effective than when a bunch of people are grouped together, Like Indra's Eternity, if you get 3 people caught in that bubble, that's 3 kills, guaranteed.
Yeah.
But you have to move together, kind of, for things like giving each other a health item or just supporting each other in a firefight, so it should make for a fun sort of balance there as you go.
Yeah, hopefully the beta grows then before it's over, and they allow you to explore more areas, or if they reveal some new maps, because I think I saw an article that talked about how that they aren't recycling any previous content in terms of maps, that they're creating, they want to have a whole bunch of new ones that are built up for Uncharted 4.
I can
which is
understand that because of the additional mobility. Like, we
hmm
want people to slide down roofs and use the grappling hook, but part of me does hope that we see some classic maps as like DLC or just something down the line. Once
yeah,
that first experience is out.
yeah. I think they'll definitely get a better feel for that kind of audience, or to see how that will play out after the game is out for a while, for sure. Once people get to
I
explore
think
to see how
everything
they
is
play.
Yeah, I think everything is primed for this to be a really successful multiplayer title on PS4 because
Hmm
so many more people now are going to be playing the latest Uncharted game than when it was on PS3, right? Just the way people are
Yeah.
talking about it, it's the final entry and it's on this system that's selling so well. I think this could be a really long-lasting multiplayer that a lot of people stick with. And that was sort of true of the past Uncharted titles, but they never really made a splash past like the first couple weeks, of release. You kind of forget
hmm
about them quickly, but I think this could go the other way. This could be a pretty big hit.
Yeah. I'd
Yeah.
say the last thing. Well, I guess Ernest, if you have anything to add for the multiplayer, because I was going to take it a little bit different direction.
No, that covered a lot of it. I didn't. I was part of the group that would maybe play some of the multiplayer the first few weeks and then just kind of drop off.
Hmm
Uncharted for me has always been really about the single player campaigns. I love those stories.
For
So
sure.
Yeah.
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 And this one
Me
looks to be
too.
more of a movie than ever.
Oh yes.
It
Even
looks,
better.
yeah, not just a sit back and watch movie, but interactable movie, like the chase scene on the back of the bike with your brother when
Oh,
you're being
Yeah.
chased by that truck and going through the
I couldn't
shipyard.
believe in that scene all of the little ways that they're giving control to the player. Like when
Yeah,
you're getting dragged behind that jeep through the mud, and you
that
can
was
kind of
insane. Well, my
you
thought
can
was
like
like,
roll your
that man has insane finger strength. That was my thought
just
the whole time.
banana land strength. Yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of reminded me of the scene in Uncharted 3 where you chase the convoy out in the desert because just you're
Ah.
behind a truck, you're following behind it, but
hmm
it was just crazy how like every game seems to add these little ways where you're in control. Like with Uncharted 2, you're climbing up that train in the beginning. You're kind of grabbing onto little seat railings and little cushions.
hmm
And now here, it's this epic set piece moment, and they just find a new way to get you involved. And here it's roll your body so you don't smash into a metal hut, or
hmm
push forward, climb the rope as much as you can, but then you've got to shoot some guys on a bike, or they're going to knock you off that rope. So yeah, it's cool. Hopefully we don't run into a case where, well, and we probably shouldn't be worried about this. A problem with the Order 1886 was that
It was bad.
there were some moments in that game. Oh, ice cold.
I haven't played it. I've just heard people talk about it. I just
It's fine. It's a solid game and it's
yeah,
all right. But it has these moments where, like, it's transitioning between. Sorry, that had some venom. There was some real venom in
I
those
haven't
words.
played it. I was just joking.
There were moments in that game where it's that transition between like a cutscene and then what you're supposed to be is gameplay. Like, hey, we've given you control, but we don't. It's sometimes it's hard to realize. Oh, I'm playing right now. Okay.
hmm
Uncharted, I think, has never really had that problem because it typically will cut to an actual movie. It'll be like a break in the action.
Well,
So
when it ends, well, a lot of times when the scenes end, it just kind of the camera just sort of pivots and then pulls out a little bit. And I've had people get surprised when I have shown them the games and they play it, and they're just like, "Oh, I'm playing now," and they're like, "Oh my god, that was so awesome!" Like, not it's never been a negative about being like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be playing right now." It's always been like, "I can't believe how seamless that was. That was
right,
amazing." So
yeah,
it's going to be exciting to see for that. But the thing that I'm most interested in, probably for the game, is the mythology that they're going to explore, or like what kind of mystical element they're going to put into this Uncharted. Because the premise of the search that we know so far is really not magical in any way. It's looking for pirate treasure.
yeah.
So
Presumably to pay Sam's debts or something, right?
right,
Keep
yeah.
Sam's in a lot of trouble.
So that's what I want to know, is like how is it going to be influenced? Is it going to follow like a thread like the past games have done, where they go to different locations but they're all connected to, like in 2 it's all connected to Shambhala, and they're like finding these little like kind of clues around the world in these different areas? Or is it going to be more are there going to be elements of the cultures that are more influenced, like more realistic elements of cultures of those regions that are more interesting or present just like in South America and in Madagascar, and or is there going to be some kind of grand reveal of some kind of magical creatures or something at the end that they've kind of gone with so far, which I don't know.
Francis Drake has been alive this whole time. He found the fountain of youth.
Well, they found his body. Well, I guess they never tested it, so. But that was one thing that I never disliked about Uncharted, but I also could have been fine without. But at the same time, when I say that 3 basically did without that, and they made the excuse of it being like a hallucinogen in the water, and you don't know if the genie, like the djinn thing, was actually any kind of real threat besides a pollutant. So it's like that was kind of a weird. Like I appreciated the mystical ending of like this kind of grand flourish at the end for 2 more than I did for the final moments in 3. In that right? Because it would just kind of it wasn't consistent with what had come out before, so you were expecting some kind of like genie to show up.
Right, it just ended up being a fear toxin.
Just have something, and that was like, okay, that's fine, but it just was kind of inconsistent with what happened. So do you think 4 is going to take the more realistic route in its approach? So what's happened, is it just going to be pirates that they deal with? Is it going to be history of the pirates that have gone through these areas, and you find the bodies and like basically tomb or like some kind of traps and stuff leading into the chamber of the gold where the gold is kept and all that stuff, but no giant purple men in Yeti costumes.
Yeah, then they were.
I wonder if they'll like initially like psych you out with with some magical elements or like creature or something, and then they'll just end up being something more practical, or just an illusion. I don't know.
Because 2 is just like so weird with when the Yeti like monster first got introduced. You're like, what? Wait, what? No! Just like, oh my god, I'm fighting it, and then you just go through it, and then this happens, and then it gets revealed later that it's not exactly a Yeti, but you're still not happy about what you see.
I'm kind of
not in saying disappointed, but you're not happy to see that you have to fight all these guys going down the line.
And the game lets you think that they're actually real Yetis for like 2 hours before it finally reveals that they're not.
Yeah, that was really cool. So,
I'm kind of in this place where I think I'd be okay with a story that's more grounded in reality. Like it is just pursuing this pirate treasure, and then whether they find it or not, they have to deal with other things. They have to deal with whoever this antagonist is and his mercenary army, and along the way, I think at the end of the day, I'd be fine with a story that doesn't really delve into the supernatural, but I also think if they went the realistic route, I might feel like it's missing a little something. It's always, even if they pull back the curtain and say, oh, it was just fear toxin, or oh, it was just guys in costumes, there's always that suspense for at least an hour or 2 where you wonder, is this going to be the one where they finally just jump the shark and go crazy supernatural? At the very least, it's got to have history. It's got to have Nathan Drake
for sure,
standing at a table, pacing,
old maps everywhere.
There needs to be a map.
And he's talking about T. Lawrence, or he's talking about
ancient relics,
Blackbeard, whatever. Yeah, there's got to be that moment where he's doing that,
things.
and then characters roll their eyes at him because he's super passionate about history.
So whether or not
Sully goes, "What does it all mean, Drake?"
What does this all mean? Where's the payout?
What the hell are you doing?
So that's worth a lot of money, huh, Drake?
So whether or not you feel that it would be appropriate or not, do you think that they are going to go the mystical route, or do you think they are going to keep it more down to earth? I honestly think that they're going to make it focused more on the family ties issues and the relationship with him and his brother. I don't think it's going to be. Well, we also have to know the role of Nadine and the mercenary group, or whoever the people they're fighting there, because she's supposed to be in control of a mercenary group from the trailer. So how much of that is going to be kind of like a Lazarevich sort of situation, or if they're enforcers, if they're hired by a private party, if they're after the pirate treasure because Nadine heard about this and they're. So I don't know, but I don't personally. I don't think that they're going to go the mystical route, going off the coattails of 3, which if they're being consistent, if they want to be consistent, I'm fine with it. But at the same time, I'd love to see some kind of crazy magical thing happen in PS4 graphics by now.
I think you're probably right. Like, at least the promotional materials this time around are much less focused on the legend that he's chasing this time. I
Yeah.
remember the Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3 campaigns. The trailers would always open with him reading the historical quotes of T.E. Lawrence
Yep.
or Marco Polo, right? And there was always that moment of like, I did not say half of what I saw, for I knew I would not be believed.
Mhm.
And they get you hooked on that historical
Yeah.
element and those mysteries right off the bat. And there hasn't been hide nor hair of that in the 2 years that we've known about Uncharted and been seeing these videos. It's always been character relationships. And yeah, I think that's probably if I was going to lean one way or the other, I'd probably go the same way as you because of that. There hasn't been, it just doesn't seem to be the focus. And to be honest, it might be a little distracting from the message they really want to drive home about love and having your priorities in the right place.
Hmm. So, Ernest?
Yeah, with you guys there. I think that they're really striving for that more emotional, grounded impact, and to have something just come out of left field, like, I don't know, aliens. Let's just hope it's not aliens and it's not like an Indiana Jones 4 scenario.
They reveal
But
Stonehenge in its true meaning.
oh my god!
How did we
Can you
get up
imagine?
here?
And then everyone just like levitates off the ground. Stones are just swirling. Oh my god!
Oh,
Yeah,
Guys,
yeah.
this
That
is
would,
a
that would ruin the moment.
Drake wakes up in a white room.
Yeah.
this is a real thing that Naughty Dog thought about in its brainstorming sessions. Uncharted
Oh, yeah.
goes to space.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
There's a story on Kotaku where they're talking to Robert Cogburn, I believe is the lead designer. Lead game designer. And he goes, "We've definitely had brainstorms on that idea. I can already see the scene." Elena says, "Where do we go now, Drake?" And Drake's like, "The moon." And then Sully's in the background going, "You're goddamn right, we're going to the moon, kid."
And they just start talking about Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. They hit a treasure up there.
The landing was faked.
Yeah. Inside of the flagpole that's planted on the moon. It's a secret. It's a secret to the United States history.
Are you guys okay with this being the last installment? You know, we're kind of at this, we're just goofing around about the space thing, but I mean, this is the end. There's never going to be another adventure.
I
At
was
least
fine
not.
with 3 being that. I honestly expected 3 was going to be when I was playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it seemed like kind of an end.
At the moment, I'm excited for 4, and I don't want there to be another one after that. But by the time I play through 4, I may want there to be another one. So who knows? But
It does depend on what note they leave the story on. Yeah, I'm with you where 3 definitely felt like a logical ending point. You know, it brought the story full circle. But everything I've been seeing about 4 and the way the characters are coming back together, I'm like, this is totally seems like a logical progression to me. You know, there's nothing about this that seems forced or like, oh, we had to do another one, so let's do this.
Right.
This is more, and the more I talk about it, the more I want it to be character based and relationship based, and that does seem the way they're going. And like, let's give it one last hurrah where we really focus on the characters and what they're feeling, and then like in the process of doing so, allow you to say goodbye to them.
yeah, no, I'd agree. I think it's just gonna. Naughty Dog is so smart. They've proven that over and over. They don't. That's the main reason why they haven't done another Jack and Daxter game. They've actually tried to do that, and they said it just didn't feel right. And they that studio only does what they think feels right for their team to do. They never give in to demands of fans, really, in terms of what their creation, how they're going to be creative. Which, honestly, if they weren't that way, we may have never seen The Last of Us.
True.
So it's.
I got one for you based on that. I know that you love The Last of Us, as many people do. But I also know that you have a good narrative appreciation where you know when it's right to return to something and when it's right to move on. So we're looking past the future of Uncharted. You know, Uncharted 4 comes out. Now we're into late 2016, early 2017. It's time to start thinking about what's next. Do you want there to be a Last of Us 2, or do you want Naughty Dog to go somewhere else?
Not at all.
Nope.
I would be
was
okay
curious
if
what you
they
thought,
did it.
but I'm with you.
Yeah, I'd be okay if they did in a certain way, but there absolutely does not need to be. And for a while I've been kind of disappointed that people like that studios haven't stuck to
That people
convictions
seem
of
so
making.
gung-ho about it.
Well, that people just have the studios just don't make standalone games anymore. Really, it's all about the
Right.
the threequels and all that.
Seriously,
Franchises.
it's about the threequels. Yeah,
they
you have
need,
to make it to number
they
3.
need to get they have to do that. They have to get all 3 of their games out. And I mean, that's been a trend in entertainment for the last several years in games and movies and such. So it doesn't need one. I would like to see if they did do another one. It'd be good to follow up Ellie's. I think it'd be nice to follow up Ellie's story and focus more on her than anything. I think Joel would be. This would be set. I would want it to be set when she's more of an adult, so she's more on her own and not necessarily the same thing that I don't want it to be the same thing we just saw. I'd want it to explore something new and to see whether or not the world has changed, and if it's gotten more hopeful, and if it hasn't gotten hopeful, why is that? And to kind of explore into that kind of way. So
yeah, I like that. That I mean, if they had to do another one, that would be a cool story to see. But I'm in the same mind as you, where, for one thing, right off the bat, The Last of Us 2 sounds kind of stupid. Yeah. It's a weird title.
Sounds like it's like Final Fantasy 7. I mean, right?
Yes, yeah. At least children. Yeah, it just sounds weird. Like The Last of Us was such a intriguing title, and it still is. Like, it's such a good game name, and it really there's something really appealing to me about The Last of Us forever standing on its own as this single piece of art, the single work that came out was its own contained world and accomplished everything that Naughty Dog needed it to accomplish in one game. We got Joel and Ellie's story, and it examined this human relationship and asked some pretty difficult questions of the player, and that's it. That is The Last of Us, this amazing game that came out in 2013. I think.
Yeah, I mean, the other way that they could do it would be to do kind of like the Irrational Games route with BioShock, where they did Infinite, where it was it was basically the polar opposite take of the themes of the first game. So it was the same universe, but it was flipped upside down, and you got to see it from the different perspective, and then that all connected to each other. But I mean, that's got a lot more mind games to it and how they did it that way. So I would love to see Naughty Dog try to tackle a concept like that if they wanted to re-explore the world of The Last of Us in a different way. So
I do think the most exciting thing is, for me, the question I would love to ask is, where do you go after Uncharted? You know, if you're not going to do a sequel to The Last of Us, which I'm right there with you, I hope they don't. What is Naughty Dog going to do next? That's crazy to think about. Like, what direction are they going to go? You got to think it's probably going to.
They're gonna make a MOBA.
Oh no.
Yep.
I would like to see
with all of the Naughty Dog characters in history.
I would like to see Naughty Dog do a cool sci-fi story.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and there's cool. We definitely know they can design cool machines and cool cityscapes and stuff. You get toward Jak 2, Jak 3, some of that post-apocalyptic stuff.
If they did something high fantasy, that'd be really cool too.
Oh yeah,
if they did post-apocalyptic high fantasy,
what?
That'd be awesome.
What?
That'd be really, really cool.
What would that? Wait, how would the apocalypse happen in a high fantasy setting? Would it be like meteor?
It could be meteor. It could be a magic catastrophe that happened that destroyed the parts of the world, and people are recovering, and that could lead into just some random sect of humanity or race is being demonized because they led to this destruction of something, and there's different things. Huh?
What are the chances that Uncharted 4's Libertalia is actually an elaborate connection with Fallout 4's Libertalia?
Oh God.
The ship graveyard of Fallout 4.
That'd be
just kidding.
But yeah, I think that's the $1 million question right now is what Naughty Dog will do next, because after they did Jak and Daxter, they went to Uncharted, which nobody had any idea would ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only so many things that they can cover.
They're going to go back to Crash. That's what's going to happen.
Probably just a super gritty, hyper realistic version of Crash.
I I don't think it's going to be anything that we can possibly predict.
No.
I remember opening when Uncharted was first revealed back in the day, opening a game magazine and reading the first preview of it. I'm like, however old I was at the time, I couldn't believe that Naughty Dog was moving away from a platformer with kind of cartoony or colorful art into a realistic game. I was like, what? That's not Naughty Dog, but
This is gonna suck.
right. So it's totally like, yeah, no idea. They could go in any direction.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to see. So I think on that note, we've just about covered everything, and even want to do a little bit of Naughty Dog themselves outside of their hopefully fantastic swan song for the series, which is what it's looking to. It looks like it's shaping up to be just that from what we've seen so far. So if you haven't caught up with stuff, well, I'm sure if you're watching the video version of this, you're going to see a lot of the stuff we talked about in action from the footage. So, but if you want to hear them talk while you're watching those videos, be sure to check all that stuff out because it's well worth the watch if you need to rekindle your hype for the game.
Oh yeah, did the job for me.
Yeah, it does it really well. And get into the beta if you can. Is that open to everyone, or is it just collectors? Collectors or the remaster?
Only people who own the Nathan Drake collection get access to it because you kind of access the beta through like the sub menu on the PS4 system menu, kind of those icons, and then you download it. But the beta is open until the 13th, so go if it's not already too late.
Well, I think it might be a little too late by the time we get this up there, but
fair enough.
The beta was great.
It was super fun.
It was awesome.
We loved it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be lots of footage of it for you to check out over the coming week. So, but yeah, look forward to a lot more news on Uncharted 4. I'm sure coming up on PSU we'll have a lot more covering because this is really the first big exclusive that PS4 is going to get.
This is a juggernaut. Yeah, the only thing comparable would be God of War 4. That's the only thing on this level where it's actually known by people. I feel like outside of Infamous is known by people, sure, but kind of only within the PlayStation ecosystem.
Uncharted is what we call quadruple A title.
Quadruple A title. All right.
Yeah, but it's huge.
Yeah. So all three of us are super excited. We can't wait to. Well, we can't wait to see more on Uncharted 4, but we will until it comes out because we don't want it spoiled for us. And we'll definitely have a spoiler cast of Uncharted 4 after it's out, so you guys can look forward to that in the future. So thank you, Kyle and Ernest, for this thorough and well thought out discussion on Uncharted 4.
Thank you. The hype is real.
Yeah,
it's going to be great.
So thanks for listening to episode 9 of PlayStation Fix, our conversational podcast. And not only is it a conversation between us, but we want it to be a conversation with you. So please comment and let us know what you think about the show, questions you have, anything that you want us to address. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Cool. Thanks for listening.